Hi friends, recently I shared a few pictures of my face and a war on the internet broke out. I was trying to share how much I've changed over the past few years before starting Blueprint and now. And people were commenting whether I looked worse or better. There was a lot of comments. And so today I thought what I'd do is share with you my life through pictures of my face, because all of our faces tell stories, maybe more so than we realize. And I wanted to show that I have lived many lives, and those lives have been captured in my face. Let's go. All right, with this first picture, I was born into a rural Utah area. My grandpa had a farm. The community was deeply religious, so everyone believed the same thing. So little Bryan here, he doesn't know what's going on, but he is about to enter a situation where he's told that only one reality in existence is true. So you better get ready for it, and that everyone else is wrong. So here you go, Bryan. When I was 12 years old, I had been really skinny. And then in the summer from being 12 to 13, I remember I ate so many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and I just thought, I just can't eat enough of these guys. And sure enough, they showed up. I think I added maybe 20 to 30 pounds, or maybe 20 pounds in one summer. And this was before I went to 6th grade. And so I became quite large. And I didn't realize it at the time. People at school would start to call me fat, and I started becoming self-conscious of my weight. And I remember telling my mom this, and she said, Bryan, you're not fat, you're just husky. So that was like the frame of my mind, is like, I'm not fat, I'm husky. And I think you'll see in other pictures that I was trying to compensate for my weight for quite some time. I'm sure we'll get into those. This is a picture of, I'm in Hawaii with my dad. My dad had some challenges early in life, and I didn't see a lot of him. And so this trip was really special because we went to Kauai, and my mother was like, we had very little money and quite frugal. My father was, he kind of lived large in some ways. And so to fly to Kauai, to be on an airplane, and then to go to an island was just unimaginable to me. And so being there, this is the night before we went out to dinner. I'm wearing clothing that my father bought me. This is when I started playing around with several things. You can see the lines on the side of my head. We started cutting our hair in unique ways. In my little town, because we were all Mormon, there was very little opportunity to be different in any horizontal way. Like, we all believed the same thing. We had the same morals. We had the same ethics. We went to the same church. We believed the same things. And so to be different was really hard. You could become a stoner or a jock, like small differentiation like that, but it was very hard to be different. And so you had to do other things to be distinct and unique. And this is the first time where I started to play around with this idea. And so my friends and I, we cut lines in the side of our head as a style. I also got braces. Oh, I'm wearing a chain, so I guess I'm back to that. In high school, this is my sophomore year. I remained a nice person. I guess that's maybe subjective, but I've always been nice to other people. It's always been a principle that has been taught to me, and I've tried to enact that. I think I'm a pretty nice person here. This is so back to when I got larger, because I was bigger, or as my mom would say, husky, I started lifting weights. And a few months, I became the strongest kid in the school. I could bench press more than anyone. And there was another kid who actually beat me at the last part of our senior year, so he got the crown for end of year. But I turned my size into an asset, and I became very large and very strong, and I focused a lot on athletics. So here, this is like the uniform in my little town, where hat backwards, Spartans. I'm not sure where I got the hat, but it was always a hat, always backwards, and always a shirt off. And you can see my skin is pretty tan. We were always in the sun and never wearing sunscreen. With my size, I started mapping out what kinds of things I could do and started playing football, and it turned out I was pretty good at football. This is my sophomore year of playing football. I was middle linebacker, occasionally ran as a fullback, and I loved football. It was just like this opportunity to go out and engage in warfare, like physical warfare, by just being tough and rough. And that was consistent. We were pretty rough and tough growing up. And football was the sport in my town. Like nothing was bigger than football. So it was really enjoyable to play something that everyone was so into. After high school, I decided to serve a mission for the Mormon church. This is where you spend 2 years basically proselytizing, trying to convince people to join the Mormon church, and that what they believe is wrong, what you believe is right. And so this is me when I received the mission call. So you get a letter in the mail, and it's like, dear Elder Johnson, that's the name they use. And so I read this letter, and I learned that I would be in Ecuador. And so we pulled out the globe in the house, and we said, where's Ecuador on the globe? So everybody could see it, but all of my closest friends and family showed up for the event. It's really a great community occasion. And it was also like the beginning of probably one of the most transformative events of my life. This is me getting ready to serve a mission. So I hadn't yet started the mission, but I'm ready to go. That's a new suit. I remember that suit was $99. It was the most we had ever spent on a piece of clothing. And my mom was like, we're gonna splurge, we're gonna do this right. And I think that tie was something like $11.99. We just didn't spend money like that on anything, but my mom wanted the best for me. So that was my first suit. You can see here, this is a few months into Ecuador. I'm now drowning in my suit. I lost around 60 pounds when I was in Ecuador. The food made me terribly sick. I must have had something in my GI tract, but it was terrible. Like the first few months, I was constantly throwing up. I had diarrhea all the time. I couldn't eat any food. My face broke out into this rash / acne jungle. It was just awful. I thought I was going to have scars all over my face, and it was really unnerving. I couldn't get help from anyone, and I needed really serious medical help, but it just wasn't there for me. So I had to just fight through it. So you can see I've lost a ton of weight. My brand new suit is taking a punishing. It was in tatters when I came home. This is a few months in. I'm still wearing that same tie, and you can see my face is just annihilated. It's red and rashy, and again, I'm having to reconcile that I'm gonna be scarred the rest of my life. And on Ecuador, you're on the equator, so the UV index is pretty high. So I'm just getting blasted with high UV rays all day, every day, being out in the sun. And then this is going on. So yeah, so I can't eat, I'm sick. It's very hard to sleep, but I'm really trying to be my best self. You can see here, I really, really try to be a good missionary. And I'm holding one of the kids that, the families we used to hang out with. This is an example. My sister came down to pick me up after Ecuador. She also served a mission in Chile, and that's how skinny I was. But looking back to where I started, 60 pounds heavier. I was so scared of eating the food because it would wreck my face and make me sick that I basically just didn't eat for the 2 years. Coming home, it was a great time to rebuild my relationship with my dad. I guess we did a video about this that we will be sharing soon, and the journey that I've been on in my relationship with my father, but being reunited with him was wonderful. I had my first baby when I was 24 years old. What an exciting moment that was. I mean, to have this person in your life that you're now responsible for, that they need you every second of the day for their own survival, and that the kind of person they're going to become is going to be influenced by how you raise them. And I took fatherhood very seriously. I was endeavoring to really be the best father, and so I'm determined to be a wonderful dad, and I would do anything really for my children. This picture I think captures my ideas. I really cared about being a good father, and I think I had some carryover concepts. I chose this photo because my oldest son and I are at McDonald's, and this was a date night. Once a week I take one child on a date, and this is Jefferson's night for date night. So we would do what they wanted to do. We went to McDonald's because Jefferson wanted to have it looks like a Happy Meal or something like that. You want what's best for your children. You don't want them eating fast food. Also, it was his preference to do so because he had grown up in a culture where eating McDonald's was okay and or the reward for a given thing. And so I remember feeling so conflicted of wanting to give my children what they wanted to make them happy, then also wanting what was in their best interest. And it's just this constant tension because you can't really force them to do things. And when they come into a culture where eating healthy is just not the norm, my partner didn't have great health habits. And so she would have things at home that I just didn't like. And so it was this really big divide in our home of like, dad is trying his very best to be healthy. Mom's like not as worried about things. And so you kind of split down the middle. And so this is me trying to be a great dad in an environment that has inherent conflict on what the children are learning to do. This is my third child, Genevieve. This is the day that I gave her a blessing. So I was in the Mormon church until about 34. I left the church when I was 34 years old. I believe I'm about 28 here. This is building Braintree. I think for me, the thing this image does more than anything is I'm in so much pain. I had come down with chronic depression. I say come down because working very hard as an entrepreneur, I just kind of cracked and depression was upon me. And so when I look at this, I can see Bryan's eyes and I can see how much pain he's in. Like, it's really hard to be him at this moment, and he just wants to die. And so even though he's smiling, inside he's dying. This is at the tail end of Braintree. So I started Braintree in 2007. I sold it in 2013. And that was such a dark moment because I had been building that company and being chronically depressed and having challenges with my partner and been trying to relieve the religion for all that time. And I was really at this break point where I didn't know if I could carry on another step. And you can see here, I'm dead. Like, in my eyes, I'm absolutely wiped out. On the tail end of Braintree, I started doing several, I was trying to remake myself in life. I just had this really challenging 15-year run of entrepreneurship from the age of 21 through selling Braintree. And it was a very difficult time in my life. And I was trying to remake myself and get a breath of fresh air. I just made money for the first time in my entire life. I was broke for the first 34 years of my life. And so I started doing some adventure around the world. This one, I believe, I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And same thing, I'm working through my depression, but climbing the mountain and trying to clear my head. But this was a candid shot, and I think it does capture my essence of I feel really heavy with existence. I'm trying to stay upright, but I don't know where to go and how to. This was shot in a hotel in New York. So I had sold Braintree. I was trying to remake myself. This was for the Wall Street Journal. And they wrote an article about, I had established a venture fund with $100 million that I was endeavoring to try to bring the future into the present. And so I was focused on deep tech, which is a word that describes synthetic biology, genomics, computational therapeutics. And as a novice, I was trying to see if I could go fund and do things that were missed by the normal channels of venture capital. So this was me of hey, I'm trying to rebuild myself from the world of finance and payments of Braintree into this new world of science and technology. Inc. magazine took this picture, and I did an interview with them, and I forget what the topic was. After I had achieved some success with Braintree, for the first time, publications were hey, we're interested in what you have to say about a given topic. And so I was oh, that's interesting. Okay, I don't know if I have anything interesting to say at all, but okay, I'll try. And so this is, I think, me trying to grapple with this new thing that I was, somehow I had achieved some status in society where people would care to take my picture and would care to listen to what I say. And I'm now trying to adjust how I understand reality based upon that, not knowing if I was worthy of that situation, but I'm thinking through it. So I got married when I was 24 years old, and I'd never had a girlfriend in high school. I didn't have a girlfriend in my early 20s. So basically, I married without a whole lot of dating experience. And after I got a divorce, I was dating for the first time in my life. And this is me trying to clean up to be presentable to a potential mate. And I hired a photographer to take these pictures. It was the first time. I was pretty camera shy. When I was 12 years old and became big, I became self-aware. And I was always self-aware because, my friends had said I was fat. And so it was always on my mind. And so as this picture is being taken, I'm running loops in my mind of do I look okay? Am I embarrassed of myself? You could also track this back to when I was a missionary, where my face was destroyed. So I guess I probably have had this insecurity my entire life. And here I'm trying to look my best, and I'm wondering, is there a possibility that I can find somebody that would want to date me? Shortly after that is when I really started to get into health. I had destroyed myself. Really as a kid, eating junk food and soda and sugar, that was the norm. That was bad. Also, 21 years old on, I was destroying myself with stress and lack of sleep, eating junk food, too much food, being obese. And so I really was trying to turn the corner to say, can I optimize for my health? And I'm on a treadmill here doing a test looking at my heart function. And so first efforts, this is like beginning blueprint of we're pointed in the direction of health and wellness. And I'm starting to try to piece together what to do. In this time period, I approached it, I think how many people do, which is like, what's trendy? This is a cryo tank. So you jump in and you get excessively cold, and it's reported to help with healing and recovery and inflammation. And so I was starting to do this, but I was basically riding the cultural trend, not knowing what worked or didn't work, or even knowing how to measure biomarkers. So this is me of like, yay, jumping in, doing things for my health, but I had no idea what I was doing. I guess I'm trying to feel good about myself with this image. I remember thinking that I've overcome being obese. I have some degree of control over my health. So I guess I'm feeling pretty good. This is my home in Virginia. After I sold Braintree, we moved to Virginia as a beat, and I had this house in the middle of the forest. It was spectacular, just dead quiet, trees all around. I loved it. It was such a beautiful environment. So I had a gym there. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself in that picture. So this is when I started building kernels. This is in our first office. That was a contemplation I was making where I sold Braintree Venmo. I made a couple $100 million, and the pressing question on my mind was what to do now. And I was obsessed with this question. And I had decided that a brain interface was potentially the highest value thing, because as we evolve with AI, we want this evolution to be fast and quantified. And I thought if we could build a high bandwidth brain interface and connect ourselves with AI, we'd be able to evolve ourselves with much greater accuracy and do so in a methodical way. This is my first year into Blueprint. In that picture with me is my oldest son, Jefferson. He's not in the frame, but he and I were working out together, and I'm so happy because I am with my son. When I got a divorce, their mother stayed in the religion. I left the religion, and so the kids were in a tough spot. Do they believe in dad or do they believe in mom? And the kids kind of split. My middle son, Talmadge, came with me. The two others stayed with their mom. And so Jefferson spent the summer with me, and here he's with me, and we worked out every day together. And I'm very, very happy to be with my son. I feel fantastic about my body and my health. And so throughout my entire life, I've kind of had this insecurity, and now I'm feeling like I'm on it. I feel great. I look great. I'm with my son. I'm out doing what I want in the world. So like, this is starting to become like peak life experience, where I had been born into this very myopic, narrow religious mindset, and now I've moved out of it and I'm into this really big world of trying to do really fun stuff. So I'm feeling right now like peak life. This is really good. And you can see my son Jefferson here on the left. I asked him to train me. He was really into athletics and health. He had been overcoming a personal challenge of his own, so he had gotten into it out of necessity. And so I asked him to take me on as his project. And the thing I love about this picture is not my body. I love my son's face, because he was so proud of me, and it felt deeply rewarding that my son would be proud of me, because the relationship I had been so invested in them, and then to have it reciprocated back to me was joyful. Blueprint got increasingly rigorous. At this point, I was doing 1 meal a day, 1,977 calories. So you can see that is my entire day's caloric intake in 1 meal. On the left-hand side is 10,000 lux light, which I did in the morning. And then there's a red laser laying down then the food, and then a mat where I would stretch and eat. But this is a happy place. My face here to me says like, I'm in the zone. I'm feeling great about life. And yeah, one of the happier moments of my life. That's a good one to see. My father and our relationship continued to evolve and develop. And I got him on Blueprint. I think he was in a pretty bad spot, and I laid out the entire protocol for him, and he turned his health around. And here, I think he had lost something like 40 pounds. And so he's feeling bullish about life. Like he has it back. You can see it on his face. So good job, Dad. This is a photo that was taken by the most talented photographer I had worked with up until that point. He worked for all the big magazines. I remember just being excited that we were doing this. He was shooting for a publication that did a piece on me. And so he had me do various activities. We kind of walked around. This is one of the earlier moments in Blueprint publicity where we'd have people show up, and I was getting familiar with how do you pose? What do you do? What do you not do? And what incentives do they have? Who's going to dunk on you? Who actually can you trust? It's a really complicated world. And so this is one of the pictures he took. We were upstairs in my home. You can see how lean I'd gotten. I think I was down to something like just under 10% body fat, thereabouts. And like a year or so into Blueprint, I'm having a blast. This is the image that was in the Bloomberg article. I have the kernel brain interface on my head. So we built a wearable fMRI. So you're familiar with those big machines that you get in. It's kind of like a coffin-like environment. We built that same tech that you just put on your head like a helmet. And so in deciding what to do on this photo shoot, this is the same photographer as that previous photo. He suggested this be the shoot, and it was the first picture of me that went viral. This is the summertime. Jefferson, my oldest son's in the middle, and Talmadge, my second son, is on the right. And we hiked this trail in Los Angeles, Temescal Trail. It's 3.2 miles. It has an elevation of over 1,000 feet. And we would race it together. I had been doing that quite some time. My best time was just over 33 minutes. There was a time when they were young. I think Jefferson was something like maybe 14, so 14 and 12. And I told them one day, I said, boys, just so you know, I'm going to be able to beat you up my entire life. Even when I'm 60 or when I'm 70 or when I'm 80 and you think you're tough stuff, I'm gonna beat you up in front of your partner and I'm gonna show you. And they loved that so much. They talked about it all the time. And it became this thing where, you know, when they started putting on muscle or they grow a bit, they'd be like, Dad, I'm gonna beat you up. And so this was kind of the continuation of that same discussion. We went hiking and I said, okay, boys, here we go. How's this gonna go today? And of course, in their minds, Jefferson is 18 and Talmadge is 16. They're like, Dad, we're gonna smoke you. I said, okay, great. And so we started on the trail. It turns out I smoked both of them. They were panting so hard, I had to stop. And so that was a humbling day for them. It was a wonderful day for me. And the camaraderie that we have such great banter. And to this day, they still talk about me beating them up. So it's a good one for us to play with. This is year 2 in doing Blueprint. This is after I did what's called an IPL, intense pulse light. It's a device you put on the body and you just stamp out these big bursts of light, and it leaves these tracks on your skin. And I just done the entire body. And we were being transparent with Blueprint. A lot of people will do things for their health and wellness that they won't disclose publicly. If they, for example, if they have a surgery, you know, they'll do the surgery, recover, and then make a public appearance so that you don't see the process. We were doing all these rejuvenation therapies like light therapy, laser therapy, and I just made everything public. And I didn't care if I looked awful. You can see here, I have tracks all over me. We were very transparent, which was different than what anyone had ever done before. They had really tried to curate their image, very careful placement of how they're seen, and I just let it go. And so this is an example of like, hey, we did this therapy today. Here's what the body looks like when you do full body IPL. This image I love. I never would have guessed that my body would have this kind of muscle structure. I was doing pull-ups one day in the gym and with Talmadge, and he's like, Dad, I need to take a picture of your back. It's insane. And so I had no idea. So he showed me the picture. I was like, wait a second, what? I have these back muscles? So this was not something I was trying to do. I was working out an hour a day. And so I'm very proud of that. It took so much discipline to eat a minimal amount of calories, to work out every day, to sleep every night. Like I was really trying to hit perfect health as part of this Blueprint protocol. And so to achieve that kind of definition was great. Also, getting that lean, I lost a lot of fat in my face. And it turns out when you lose a lot of fat in your face, you look older. And so this is in part why when I shared a bunch of images of my face on the internet, a war broke out because people were like, hey, you had so much more fat on your face before, you have much less fat. I want more fat, you know, so like there's really a big trade-off. When you're working on health and wellness, there's not one thing you do that's universally good. There's a trade-off space. And so we're really trying to explore the frontiers of science, and we're just following the data, but learning a lot as we go that like, face fat is important. If you eliminate it, it's very hard to get it back. So I'm very proud of this photo for the discipline that it represents. We started to play with concepts where when I started doing Blueprint, it was really about this scientific experimentation, but it was also this first time where I didn't feel owned by any other authority in my life. So growing up, the religion is the authority. It will tell you what you can say, what you can do, what you can think. And if you violate those rules, you're in trouble. And you go through this confession process where you have to, you're shamed and you have to then repent to God. And so you're really in this constant cycle of sin, repentance, and trying to do restitution. Then when you're building as an entrepreneur, you are owned to some extent by your investors and by market expectations. You don't want to do anything to hurt the harm of your company. Well, at this point, I had made a bunch of money. I was doing a scientific endeavor and nobody had power over me. So I could start playing for the first time in my entire life. And this image is one of the first moments. So in Mormon theology, there's this discussion of Jesus is the good guy and he wants to give all of God's children free will. The devil's a bad guy and he wants to take away people's free will. And there's a lot more context for that. But basically, I was now like the devil incarnate doing Blueprint because I was building this algorithm to take better care of me than I could myself, which is basically what Satan was arguing in Mormon mythology. And so I thought the irony was so good that I had become what was told to me to be the most evil thing in existence. And so I was taking a picture being like, hey, I can play with these ideas, and that the future of existence, we may want to take the most sacred ideas of existence and start pulling them in and bringing them close and playing with them. So this is me for the first time trying to say, I'm free, I'm okay, I can be out and about, and when people hate on me, which they will, it's okay, it's expected, it's desired. So I'm very proud of myself in this moment to say, let's go, let's play, let's have some fun. So Kate did the clothing selection. Kate comes from the world of fashion. She has great taste. And we decided to do this photo shoot. She put together 5 outfits that were spectacular. This was one of them. I never in my wildest dreams would have be able to select this kind of clothing. I didn't even know this kind of clothing sold anywhere. But Kate put these things together. I put them on and it was so fun. One of the first images that we put out there, and a lot of people were like, WTF, like what is the situation? People would look at this and be like, this dude is so weird, because they couldn't make sense of the entire situation. But also in this, you can see my hair. Another restriction I had in my entire life was you must have short hair. That was the expectation as a kid, and as you grow older, as you become an adult, your hair becomes shorter. It's just like normal professional guidelines. And here, I had grown my hair out as really part of this thing of like, I can do anything, and I'm going to do everything I never could as a kid. So this captures me as a human expressing myself to say, I want to play in every way, like clothing, appearance, thoughts, mythology, all of it. The entire thing is a now playfield, and it was the most liberating experience of my life. We would do a lot of things for Blueprint. Like this is one where we're documenting my skin. We used every measurement we could on my body. I became the most measured person in human history. So this is just part of the protocol. We're looking at skin age, and this is part of our routine measurements. This is probably the most recognized image of my endeavor. My son gave me his plasma, and I gave my plasma to my dad. So we did this fun photo shoot. Yeah, it's one of the more famous representations of Blueprint. It was really special. I think that it was one of the best things I've done in my entire life. It's endlessly discussed and controversial, but for my son and my dad and I, we had a great time. For my father, it had significant results, so it really was effective. And my son, this was a really nuanced thing. As his father, Talmadge is 17 years old in this picture, and before this, I was having a discussion with him. I said, Talmadge, I can bring you into this project, and you're going to be recognized publicly and you're going to be associated with me in this project. That could be a terrible idea. It could backfire and you could hate me for it. Like you may grow up and be like, Dad, involving me at this young age was terrible. And at 17, it's challenging to make those kinds of life decisions. So I said, I'm not quite sure what to do here. I don't want to tell you to do it. I don't want to tell you to not do it. I don't expect you to have the wisdom to know what to do. So I just kind of want to say, I don't know, you don't know, what do we do? And we had a long conversation about it, and we ultimately decided that it was going to be something we wanted to play with. And he said, all right, Dad, I'm in, let's go. And so I really applaud Talmadge for carefully thinking this through, acknowledging he doesn't know what's right, and whether he would regret it or appreciate it, but really saying yes to like, this is a journey, let's go. And over the years, he has stepped into this, and I'm impressed with him. As 17, to be in this kind of spotlight and to have that kind of scrutiny is not easy, but he's handled it very well. And I think that he thinks it's one of the best decisions he's made. So that's one moment where, Talmadge and I at this point had become best friends. We just did everything together, and it was the most fulfilling relationship I'd ever had in my life. And especially rewarding because, because I invested so hard in my children, and then I kind of was blocked out of their lives for a while after the divorce, for Talmadge to be back into my life and for us to have this relationship was just like peak life. I was swimming as part of my protocol. Talmadge came out and grabbed the pitcher. I love this because it captures Talmadge and my relationship, where we just were flowing with such great rhythm in our lives. So to me, this is not about me or the situation. This is about Talmadge and I being so fluid in each other's lives. Every week for a while, I was running the Temescal Trail, the one I told you about previously, where Jefferson and Talmadge and I ran. So this is a Sunday morning, which is like my sacred time after a fun run. And this is just a few months ago where I introduced the concept of don't die for the first time. It's largely a culmination of, I have been working to do something meaningful for the human race for 25 years. So when I came home from Ecuador, I was 21. I felt this burning desire inside to do something that would help others. I didn't know what to do. And so I've been on this serpentine path for 25 years, and it crystallized in don't die. And so if I think about my life in its entirety, and if my life were to be boiled down into one sentence or two words, it would be this: that I hope my contribution to the human race is that in this moment in time, when we're transitioning from understanding that death is inevitable and a pursuit of life in that vein, to something where death is not inevitable and we may be able to dramatically extend how long and how well we can live, that we're in a new era of being human, that don't die is pinned as the moment that started to happen. And if that could be the case, I would be thrilled about life's journey. And even if not, I'm so grateful for life. I'm grateful for the challenges I've had, and what a precious thing it is to be conscious. There have been moments in my life where I was desperate to not be conscious. I wanted, with more than anything, to not exist. And so I've been on both sides of the spectrum. You can see after looking at these pictures, when I say that I've never been happier in my entire life, you can see where that's coming from and the context. I sincerely mean it. I'm not trying to cover up. I'm not being dishonest. Like, I have been in some really bad spots in my life, and I don't think life has ever been better. That is not to say that I don't struggle on a day-to-day basis with a variety of things like all of us do. It is to say that I've never wanted life as badly as I do now. As a kid, you just don't appreciate the situation. You're a kid. As you become an adult, it's this process of realizing how hard it is to navigate life on a regular basis. And over time, you kind of get beat down. And so typically, someone like myself, who's 46, I would probably be pretty beat down. I might be jaded a little bit on this and that, but I feel like it's really gone the other direction, where I have this spry appreciation for existence like I've never had before. And I'm grateful that I'm in this position, and I hope that what you get from me in this relationship is that you can feel the same way. That even though life does present a continuous stream of challenges, that we can make the conscious choice to step into this moment and the future, first with gratitude, and two, with this eagerness and courage to say, you know what? We can make things better. It's a will to exist. It's a will to live. And I hope that's what this moment's about. The frame is don't die, because it challenges the conception. Like, if you say to somebody, live well, everyone's going to say, yep, I'm doing it. If you say don't die, if you want to reject that, you have to revisit everything you understand about reality. And that's what I'm trying to do. Is in this moment, I think that we are going to need to revisit everything we understand about reality, because we're giving birth to superintelligence. And I'm trying to play a helpful role in society that can prepare all of us to get to walk into this new era with some degree of confidence that we can do this thing together. So there you have it, life through phases. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it resonated, and I hope we can all be our best selves together.